Now, all this week, we've been on the trail of people who've upped sticks in search of a better life elsewhere. Today, as part of our Leaving London series, we meet a few of the thousands unhappy about the changing face of the capital who've headed overseas. So is the grass really greener on the other side? Gareth Furby went to Cyprus to hear their highly candid views.
This is our front garden, and this is the view that we have that greets us every morning. Superb. And here you are at my bar.
Fred Stephen is a plumber from Ruislip, now working and living in Cyprus with obvious benefits.
127,000. Slightly smaller than what we had back in the UK, but about 60% of the price.
But why did he leave London? Too much crime comes high on his list.
A plumber, I have to have some power tools. They were stolen from the car more than twice over a period of 3 years.
2 fat blokes, 88.
Also gambling on a new future is Andy Faulkner. For the past 5 months he's run this bar, and he's not inclined to be politically correct about his reasons for leaving London.
I'm not racist at all, but you've got a lot of ethnic minorities in London now. I just think London is not the London that I knew years ago. All the characters have gone for me.
An estimated 60,000 expats live in Cyprus, bringing with them, it seems, a form of class system. Near Paphos, the higher up the mountain you live, the more money is involved. But some of the reasons for leaving remain consistent. Elaine Davis used to work for Harrow Council as an information officer.
You see people coming in that are actually claiming to be asylum seekers. We see them drive up in cars, park in the farthest corner of the car park, take a mobile phone out their pocket and stick it in their socks, and then come in and claim their benefits.
This man was drilled in being politically correct, but outside the capital, former flying squad officer Dick Leach isn't holding back.
I think it's going downhill. There's too many immigrants. People are afraid to say that in England because you're called a racist, but the fact is there's too many people trying to get into a pint pot.
But what about the obvious point that the Londoners here are surely themselves immigrants?
I know we are immigrants to a different country, but we always pay for what we want. We aren't a drain on their society. We actually put money into the society, and we reap the rewards.
Fred Stephen keeps pictures of the home and pub he's left behind, but says there's no going back.
Used to like it, born and bred, and proud of it. But it's a different country now. It's no longer mine.
Well, joining us here is former Conservative Minister and author George Walden, and also Philippe Legrain, who's written a number of books on immigration. Welcome to you both. George, if I can ask you first, what do you make of what you heard there?
Well, I mean, it fits. I mean, I wrote a book, as you know, called Time to Emigrate, ? Because it was an imaginary young son on average wages. I think you could have had slightly more articulate people, but I think there are younger, perfectly non-racist people who are finding life difficult here, crowded, schools, so on, problems. And of course, it's perfectly natural that immigrants should come to this thriving capital. And the first priority is to treat them decently. But we're talking now about a demographic certainty of 7 million more people in this country, which is already a pretty crowded place. And whilst that is fine for people who send their children to private schools, 13% of Londoners can afford that, but the others can't, so they have no problems there. And it's fine for people with money because they can buy space, but ordinary people can't. And so it's a question of numbers. It's not a question of racism, nothing to do with that.
Let me bring Philip in there. It's a question of numbers, George says. What's your view on that?
Well, I think to start off with, it's deeply ironic that people who dislike foreigners choose to go live abroad among even more foreigners. Their argument is that, whereas they are contributing to Cyprus, immigrants to London are a drain, and that's just simply not true. Immigrants do the jobs that Londoners don't want to do or can't do. The most recent ones pay taxes but can't claim welfare benefits and therefore are clearly net contributors. More importantly, because London is such a cosmopolitan city, that is what attracts the talented people that make the city, the media, what actually drives the whole success of this city.
What we heard there, though, was a couple of people saying that their sense of belonging had gone. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that is a problem. I think the fact that this is a very, very large-scale event that's been happening the last few years, and you can't blame people who are at the tough end of it. And as I say, that rules out people with money and businessmen who make money out of immigration. They have problems. And don't forget, on the question of who benefits, the governor of the Bank of England said recently that he's finding it difficult to do his sums because the government doesn't know who's in the country.
London has always been an immigrant city, so I mean, if he's talking about his city disappearing, he must be thinking about a London that never existed.
How can we do a cost-benefit analysis if we don't know who's in the country?
Have you ever considered moving?
No, because I'm lucky. I'm not at that level where I have sort of, I'm above average income. I've spent a lot of my life abroad. I spend a lot of time abroad now because I can afford it. But my book, Time to Emigrate, comes from a younger generation.
Yeah, and my book, we're going to talk about books by immigrants, your country needs them. We'll talk about...
Well, let's talk about points as well as books.
The issue of congestion is a complete red herring. At the end of the day, there are countries such as Holland and Japan, which are much more congested, and they have excellent public services. We just haven't invested in better roads, in better tube links, in more schools and more hospitals. There is plenty of money to spend on that. You cannot blame immigrants. You cannot blame immigrants for the state of public services.
Move on to the future. George, please. I want to just briefly move on to the future. How concerned should we be? Very, very briefly, do you see this as a problem or progression of a city?
I think my book is about a risk. It could go either way.
I'm not saying about your book. Problem or progression?
It's a big risk. We're doing something that no other country has done before.
London is a global city of the future. The future lies with cosmopolitan places like London.
Okay. George Walden.